This is a solo outing on Mashiach and Chabad, in reference to my chavrusa, who suggested that I do this response to comments, which this is about, as a solo endeavor. So I'm going to share a screen of some comments, and I will comment on them as appropriate. If you give me a second here. So for the first three comments are from a cousin of mine, and I will read and say if I concur or disagree. Number one, I think one can fall into the stereotyping trap very easily. For example, it was mentioned the closed-mindedness of Lubavitch or Lubavitchers. At the same time, it was mentioned that Rabbi Zevin was Lubavitcher. I don't think anyone would see him as closed-minded, etc. A few other names, Rabbi Landau, maybe you can blame it on him being a politician that was also a Rav, Adin Steinsaltz, many others. But I don't disagree with you that current Lubavitch standard yeshiva education tends to lead most students somewhat down the narrow-minded path that you mentioned. And then again, I think most Rosh Yeshiva Rebbe Rav relationships that were developed throughout the ages, and most of the Torah was learned from their teacher, believe that their teacher was the most perfect, used loosely, human being of that generation, took their words as Torah's Moshe Sinai. I would agree with everything except for the last sentence. I think that Bizman Hazeh, most Rosh Yeshiva, most Talmidim, most Hasidim, and most Hasidios, and certainly most Abakim, most Rabbanim, do not believe that their teacher is the most perfect, even used loosely human being of that generation, and do not take the words as Torah's Moshe Sinai. I think in our day and age that is almost unique to Chabad. Number two, regarding Mashiach. At the end of the day, it is a theoretical conversation. It makes no difference in the real world except for photo ops. For example, if you ask Lubavitch, do you want Mashiach to come, but it's not your Rebbe, the answer would obviously be yes. Doesn't make a difference if Lubavitchers feels that their Rebbe is the best candidate in Mashiach, and that if Mashiach candidate would be him. I personally think that the Rebbe is the best candidate, and now we are Dor Yosem, bereft of true leaders. Back to stereotyping. I actually had a conversation with my father-in-law, a very strong-minded Lubavitcher, said he feels that there was an Eis Ratzon that the Rebbe was trying to exploit, and it passed just like we find throughout generations that different Rishonim Achronim were sure that Mashiach was going to come in their lifetime. I know of a number of Lubavitchers that think that way. Obviously, there are Lubavitchers that fit your mold from one extreme to another. My only wish is that you would delineate what is fringe and what is mainstream. I know that Uncle Emmanuel would be upset at misquotes of Sichos and Mahamonim taken out of context that the fringe would use for their own personal agendas. I thought you did a great job of describing the fringe, which is not a problem. I think they have to be described and called out for what they are. Okay? There's no qualm with that. Number three, regarding only learning Chabad Hasidus in a practical way, very true. But I feel it wasn't given with the true perspective it deserves. We obviously learn other Hasidus for him, but not the way of true Adracha and to be used in Avodas Hashem. But I see nothing wrong with this unless Chabad Hasidus doesn't speak to them. If that is the case, then they should obviously find their derech. Derech Hagav, the Rebbe many times saw people who Lubavitchers learn Mesilas Yesharim and Chavos Havavos, especially for their wedding. It's actually Chabad custom to learn parts, if not all, of Chavos Havavos before one gets married, and that was what I was instructed to do. Again, I don't think that Sifrei Musar was my intended target. I was talking about a specific Kabbalah and Hasidus as they relate to Dveikos in Hakadosh Baruch Hu. And in that, I think that you will not find Chabad advocating for other Svarim, and very rarely learning other Svarim concerning that specific Nakuda of Avodas Hashem. More about that with the next commenter. And my cousin ends with a very nice ending. Keep up the great lectures, and I enjoy them a lot. P.S. I think of your mother all the time and her sharpness. I loved it. I think of my mother all the time, and she was especially sharp and was very, very significant part of my legacy. It's a shame for better, sometimes perhaps for worse, but okay. Shachets have shachet traits. Okay, for the next one is from a Chabad Chassid. His name is Abeli Poltorak, and I use his name because he did put these comments publicly, so therefore I assume he has no hakapara, and I'm going to go through them. Thank you for addressing my previous comment. I don't know who your anonymous interlocutor is. That was from part 4 of the series. He's a very chashiv rav. We'll leave that at that. But his views are mute. Shena Matzi Lubavitchers. This was something that I was afraid of, that perhaps my interlocutor did indeed represent the minority of my Lubavitchers, which um, makes the problem return, as we shall see. The Rebbe's being Mashiach is fundamental to our entire worldview and mission statement, not because we would have a problem with someone else being Mashiach, but rather because, as you explained in your first installment, the entire Chabad theology leads up to this Din Ummah, which I believe is true. As far as Chabad's openness to other ideas, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but your claim keeps narrowing to the point of vanishing. Why don't you just admit that was an error and move on? You mentioned Chabad above us. There are multiple lessons in the Rebbe urging people to learn it to strengthen their bitachon. The Ramchal, Hasidus generally I'm sorry, because it generally has a somewhat ambivalent or attitude towards him. See here for a summary, Chabad. Then you have the Marmokam Chabadopedia.co.il index.php slash. Oh, let me do it again. Chabadopedia.co.il / index.php slash in Hebrew Moshe Chaim Lutzato with an underline between the Moshe and the line and Chaim and the line between the Chaim and Lutzato. Again, as I said in my response to my cousin's comment, I was not referring to Svarim which have to do with Musar, but with Svarim which have to do with Chasidus and Vekos, and the ambivalent attitude towards Ramchal. I'm sure I am sure I didn't look up the Maramokam, but I'm sure that it has to do with the ambivalence of Chasidus in general to outsiders in terms of Vekus Limudi of Da'ach, the Elokim Chaim, as they put in Chabad. And I don't think it's limited to Ramchal, but also to other schools within Hasidus itself. Continuing on, you mentioned that Chabad Chasim don't typically study Noam Melech and the like, but as I already explained, that's for the same reason why Yeshiva Bachim prefer to learn Ktsoy Saint Yaakov, not on ideological aversion. Some of the occasionally Noam Melech, no one will tell him to. Moreover, there are no one tell him not to. Moreover, there are particular Chasidus that have often seen studied in Lubavitch, including Punim Yofos, which was held in high esteem by Lubavitch Rabbeim, Sfas Emes, and some affinity for Tzodek's writings. But of course, anyone who follows a particular Derech Hashem spend the vast majority of his non-Gemara learning time working on that Derech. I am actually pleasantly surprised to know that in Lubavitch they study Punim Yofos, which I'm not familiar with, but certainly Sfas Emes and Reb Tzodek. I never come across that in my interactions with Chabad, but maybe that is the case. Reason Neshama being Chelak Elokim Imal, Chasidus explains it means Hashem herself. No, I don't think Chasidus explains it that way anywhere. Not merely godliness, being the source of Chai Yechida and aspects of Neshama. This is one of the deepest secrets and explicitly stated as one of the things one may not dwell on. For a brief summary of the concept, see here, Chabadopedia.co.il / index.php / Nevesh Elokis with an underline between Nevesh and Elokis. If, for something which somebody should not dwell on, it's quoted so often that it is strange that it is not suppressed rather than broadcast all over with the misconception that there's a piece of God within each and every person. Again, the Chaya and Yechida are breathed into a person. That was when of Nishmas Chaim, and just your breath is not you, but it's an extension of yourself. So to the Chaim Yechida are not Hakadosh Baruch Hu, but an extension from Hakadosh Baruch Hu. And to believe that there is a piece of God within a person is again some very, very strong heresy, which people are wont to flippantly state and have been taught as if there is some truth to it. I don't believe, again, I don't know what Rebbe means by Hashem himself, but I hope he does not mean that there is a shtick HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kaviyachol within the indivisible. It does in fact mean godliness. Otherwise, it becomes apikorsus. And once you say Chelak Elokam Mimal, we can also be medayik. Chelak Elokam Mimal is not Chelak Havaya Mimal. It's not part of Hashem's essence, but rather of Hashem's relationship, and that in Chai Yechida are the way in which we relate to HaKadosh Baruch Hu within our neshama. The concept of the Rebbe being Atzmus Melubash Beguf is an extension of the foregoing. Given that the Rebbe is Yechida Klalis and complete butter to Hashem, the Neshama's Shorish is in Atzmus is mayor through him, as it says in Medrash Tehillim on the pasuk Tefillah Mosh Ish Elokim Chetzio Mata Ish Chetzio Malokim. That is concept Musa Mechaber. by being a boss of Adam and Yud Isha at the same time bodying and rating the source of all of our Yechida in Atzmusa Yisbarach. These are the paradigms that the Torah connects us to Hashem. As the Zohar says, Yisrael Raisa B'Kuchabrichu Kulachad, so too does the Rebbe. Um, I'm not sure what exactly the differences between what I said and what is being stated here. I think it's very similar in that just like we don't say, when we say Yisrael Raisa B'Kuchabrichu Kulachad, it means they're all connected together. They're not one entity. So too, when we talk about the Rebbe being Atzos Murish Baguf, it means he is connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a higher way. He is not comprised of something from HaKadosh, something piece, so to speak, of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like, again, the misconception, Mamish. I would like also to point out by Mamish that there's another insight to understanding, which is in a chalukah, you distribute things, right? But they're not necessarily you. You distribute things. So too, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was mechalek, powers of Elohim, powers which correspond to the connections between our Torah mitzvahs on earth and the manipulation of forces in heaven, that he distributed us that power. That is the chelek, Eloka, Mimal, Mamish, which he gave each and every Jew, which impacts on the entire Bria, both on high and by extension down here below. Again, I should have taken the time to understand where we're coming from and culturally explaining the Chabad Shita. I look forward to the next installments. Another one point I forgot to address. You mentioned specifically that Lubavitcher can't offer other explanations for the Asian universe than the Rebbe did. This too is inaccurate. You are correct to the extent that Lubavitcher cannot offer an explanation that interprets the 6 days of creation figuratively or suggests that the universe isn't for 5,781 years old, as the Rebbe lays that down as a fundamental tenet, that we not modify our Torah-based beliefs to suit science, whether we talk about the age universe, heliocentrism, etc. If the Torah seems to contradict science, we can try to reinterpret the science. If we don't have an answer, that's also fine. We still stick to Torah's emes. However, the particular explanations the Rebbe suggests in response to questions are just that, possible explanations. There's absolutely no reason why Lubavitch cannot offer other explanations. With all due respect, I think the paragraph contradicts itself, minei ubei, because we have sources in Chazal and sources which in Kabbalah, which and it's not the place to speak about it, but to me it seems quite clear in several places in Reb Tzadok that he holds this way, that the sheet of Shemitos, and the sheet of Shemitos is, but the Reb Tzadok beginning of Bahar, Tzadok is a good place to look. Reb Chaya there is that there were worlds before this one on Earth, and in fact there is also ample reason to assume that the 6 day of creation, at least until the creation of the sun, were not literally 6 days. So once you say that, what the Rebbe does is he does trap you into a specific explanation, because unless you want to just leave it with Tzarechim, once you say the 6 day of creation are literally 24-hour days, and you have to say that day zero was 5,781 years ago, either you take the Rebbe's explanation or you have no explanation. That precludes Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan's beautiful explanation based on the Tiferes Yisrael in the Jewish Orach Chaim, and similar explanations which are given by other sources, such as the more modern and, in my opinion, less reliable, much less reliable, but certainly legitimate within the framework of Emunah of Gerald Schroeder and others of that ilk. Rabbi Schwab, I believe, is one who takes the figurative 1,000 years of the figurative not the figurative 6 days of creation as being longer than the ones enumerated in longer than the literal days. And I'm sure many others take that approach as well. So those approaches are by definition precluded by Lubavitch, and therefore you will not find, as far as I know, ever Lubavitch using them. And I think that Reb Eli concedes the point. I'm not sure exactly what our Nekudas HaMachlekes is here. In fact, it's ironic that you chose this particular subject in response to me, as my father is a theoretical physicist and maintains a fantastic blog regarding Torah and science. Check it out. I think you'll find it fascinating. QuantumTorah.com. My father, who was certainly a Lubavitcher Chassid, never shied away from offering explanations that differ from the Rebbe's. In fact, my father wrote directly to the Rebbe back in the day, disputing the scientific validity of a particular suggestion the Rebbe made. That doesn't make him any less of a Chassid. Um, I'm not sure what the result of that machlekes was. If the result of not machlekes, not result inquiry, the inquiry was if, as a result of the inquiry, then uh, Rebbe Elliott's father, Rebbe Alexander Polterich, actually came to a different conclusion of the Rebbe and maintained that different conclusion, then I would be very impressed and would certainly be significant evidence against my uh, all-encompassing definition of the Yechida Close. If, however, he did except the Rebbe was mevatel himself to the Rebbe on that point, then this would in fact not be out of sync with my understanding of what's going on. I would like to add something which I sometimes say, which is somewhat flippant but somewhat true, which is that I am a Lubavitcher Chassid except for 3 points. One point is I do not accept the doctrine of Yechida Klois. Another point is that I do not accept the doctrine of Bittul, which we have not discussed in our conversations here. And a third point is I do not daven, will not daven the Sacharizal, nor accept the Hanhagas of davening, including Gartel, for the simple reason that it is said that uh, the Sachari is the 13th shar, by which people who do not know their shar can have their fields accepted by in Shamayim. Rav Yosef also used that as evidence for changing to Eidot HaMizrach Nusachari, which is different than Chabad's Nusachari. But I have no issue with that since on my father's side, I'm the Eka. Going back, we have family tree, at least going back to 1600 in a little town of Beshofen. And I know with certainty that my forefathers daven Nusach Ashkenaz, and therefore I don't have a requirement to change to Nusachari. And when my grandfather, W. Shochet Zatzal, changed over to Nusachari, it was late. It was, I believe, in the year I was born, 1962, not when he became a adherent of the Rebbe earlier than that. So he also told my uncle Emmanuel that that the reason he was switching was not because of becoming a Lubavitcher, but because he determined that Nusach Ari was more meduk than Nusach Ashkenaz. So I don't have not reached that conclusion, and therefore I would not change. Again, it's a bit tongue in cheek, but I think the point is well taken. I am not here to bash, and I don't think I bashed. I am here to present what my perspective is on the differences between Chabad and other other approaches to Mashiach and to be the Rebbe, all emanating to the greatest extent from Yechida Klois.